All right, I'm hoping everybody can hear me now. All right, a very good morning to everybody, including our viewers who are watching us on Business Day TV. Welcome to this special broadcast of the annual SA Innovation Summit, of course, being hosted by the Department of Science and Innovation. We are coming to you live from the Old Biscuit Mill in Woodstock, Cape Town. My name is Sumay Zake, and I'll be your MC for this session. We've got a packed lineup for you. Indeed, you saw some of the speakers before this, and there'll be more over the next few days. It is indeed exciting to see some of the innovations that have been talked about and are being displayed, made right here at home, and in particular the role that the Department of Science and Innovation is playing in bringing those to the fore. Now, in its 15th year, the summit, which will be taking place over the next 2 days, as I've mentioned, is a flagship event on the SA Innovation calendar. But importantly, and I think what captures the imagination, is the summit creating a platform of nurturing, developing, and showcasing African innovation, as well as facilitating innovation thought leadership. So what we're going to be doing over the next hour and a bit, in fact, we've got less than that, is to take a look at some of the successes and the milestones that have been achieved, with a particular focus, of course, on the Innovation Fund. The Innovation Fund is a standalone public-private funding partnership that was started last year. It is intended to facilitate commercialization by de-risking early-stage technology development phases and thus creating opportunities for later-stage investments from the private sector. So to tell us more about this initiative and its significance, we've got a panel of distinguished guests here for you. We're joined by, starting from my immediate left, Dr. Phil Mjwaka. He's the Director General of the Department of Science and Innovation. Next to him, Bonani Mofe, the Deputy Director General, Socio-Economic Innovation Partnerships at the Department of Science and Innovation. That's followed by Patrick Papi. He is the Acting CEO of the Technology Innovation Agency. Lucky Payne, the Acting Executive Head of Research at the Public Investment Corporation. Then Mr. Ketso Gordon, he's the CEO of the SA SME Fund. And then we've got two beneficiaries of this partnership. That is Mr. Francois van Schalkwyk, the Operations and Engineering Manager at HiPlat, and then also Jonathan Lund, who is the founder of Hypernova Space Technologies. And we'll be getting a sense of how they have benefited from such partnerships. Very quickly, ladies and gentlemen, I know we don't have time. I will be taking 2 or 3 questions from the audience. At that time, there will be a roving mic that will make its way across the room. Please do indicate by raising your hand. We'll get that through to you. Please do keep those questions brief, and we will try and get to as many of those as we can. So getting straight into the conversation, Dr. Mjwaka, I'm going to start off by asking you to set the scene for us by reflecting on the Innovation Fund in relation to the policies of the Department of Science and Innovation.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thanks for giving us the opportunity to say a few words. I want to make 3 points in introducing what the panel will be talking about. The first one is that we are very much aware as government that the world around us is changing very rapidly. Whether it's in the products that we consume or whether it's the future of work, and therefore as government who have to collect taxes from you, the future of work is changing, the nature of the business are changing, and we have to worry about that. We have to worry about how do we deliver services with innovative technology and technology solutions. So it is for that reason then that as a Department of Science and Innovation that is given the mandate to look at how innovation can address this changing world, we started the idea of creating, I think, a fund, and had great support from government on setting up this innovation fund and pilot it to see whether we can address some of these broader objectives that I've shared. Dr. Mwope will elaborate on the fund, what it has achieved in the last 18 months or so. The second point is that if therefore we want to drive innovation, we need to build a coordinated ecosystem. This point has been raised in the session we had, that we're all doing our little bit to drive innovation, but we are not coordinated. If you have venture capital funders, entrepreneurs, accelerators, angel investors, incubators, innovation hubs, unless we work together to drive innovation, even if we have the money, we'll never be able to drive innovation. So a part of the panel you see here is to start thinking about how do we build this coordinated ecosystem. And then lastly, as I've said, the fund is predominantly designed to get in the very early stages of people with ideas. In the previous years, we used to call this fund the fund that you go to when nobody can listen to you. And I suspect that the beneficiaries will talk about this. But then begin to use this fund to leverage additional funding for those who have mandates of making sure that the companies that are in the marketplace make money, and you'll hear more about what that has been done. And in so doing, we wanted to support business entrepreneurs and make sure that we leverage funding with other public institutions. So we hope that you will work with us in driving the next stage of the fund, and we hope we'll be successful in convincing government to continue with this. But any ideas that you have to the department are welcome. Thank you very much.
Just a very quick follow-up, Dr. Mjaka. You mentioned the in your keynote the decadal plan. What are the
from being a pilot into a fully fledged fund, and we will work with the other partners to build this ecosystem of different role players to drive it.
All right. Dr. Mhofe, let me come to you now. So the Innovation Fund in pilot phase was started last year, and we'll touch on some of the successes in just a bit. But let's start by looking at the rationale behind its establishment, and also perhaps what makes it different from other funding instruments.
I think the rationale around the establishment of the Innovation Fund was that we have done an analysis of the system in terms of funding for innovation in South Africa. And there's always been a gap. And those who have been in the system for long enough know that we talk a lot about the innovation chasm. And we realized that that particular gap was not being closed. So it's basically an area where nobody plays. And as a department, having seen this and the work around the establishment of this fund started, and what we're now doing is to identify and appreciate the role of the ecosystem. So you therefore have the money that you have and you use it to attract others. But most crucially is to say, how do we do things differently? And the difference here comes in the sense that, firstly, we realize that we've got to work with other investors and other funders, the fund of funds and everything, and looking at even giving away the power that we always want to have, say, at government level, where you decide where the actual funding goes, and to say, that capacity in terms of doing due diligence doesn't sit with us. So that's where we started to then link up with the likes of the SME Fund, the PIC, who actually have the eye of projects that they feel that they can take us somewhere in terms of success. And I think that for me was the difference between how we have done things in the past and how we're doing things now. So to be able to know that if we come together as stakeholders and identify and acknowledge each other's different capacities, we'll be able to do things better.
How does the fund assist in de-risking the early phases of technology development?
And that's basically where we wanted to fall in, is because there's just way too many initiatives that you can invest in. And it's very scary. And those who spoke earlier, when you want to invest your hard-earned cash and you haven't gone through just those teething problems where somebody has got an idea and you just need to have maybe a prototype developed and you can test it. At that stage, people will not necessarily want to put their own funding. That's where government is saying, yes, we see when you look at what is happening globally, your top 5 companies have actually started off through these investments where people come in, you've got angel investors coming in, and then it grows. And unless we find a space to do it as government, a lot of people will not want to put their hard-earned money. But when you have de-risk, you start to see, and the DG in his presentation mentioned about us putting R1, and then you start to see 3 more rands coming into the picture. Those 3 rands wouldn't have come through if that R1 wasn't there. And that's really for us the big de-risking aspect that we are starting to see. And this is still early days, but really for us, the leveraging impact is showing us the signs that yes, indeed, we are in the good path.
One of the things it's supposed to create is opportunities for later stage investments by the private sector. What sort of appetite are you seeing on that front?
And that appetite has really been very great in my view. And as we have looked at the figures, we haven't released some of the latest in terms of what the last project's investment has given us. And it's even much bigger in terms of what we're seeing. We're starting to see other funders coming on board. And when the colleagues who are also on the panel start to talk, then you realize that when you started off, you give, say, 5 million rands, and some of them are starting to attract international investors. So we're really finding this very exciting that when we take our rightful positions and allow the whole ecosystem to begin to function, then bigger things that we have always, I think, for the past couple of years been dreaming of are starting to be realized.
All right. So as we mentioned, the Innovation Fund is currently being implemented in partnership with agencies, in particular the Technology Innovation Agency. We've got the Department of, which is an entity rather of the Department of Science and Innovation, the Public Investment Corporation, and the SASME Fund. So when we're putting some questions to the gentlemen who are representing those agencies, I'm going to be starting off with Mr. Patrick Krappi. If you would kindly just talk us through how the Innovation Fund is helping support the mandate for the TIA.
Thank you very much for this. For us at TIA, I think when the fund was conceptualized and we started putting the concept document together with the department, we worked very closely around that. First thing is that we had a shared view with the department of what the problem is in the system. And that shared view came out of TIA's own experiences over the years in implementing its mandate. And it's important to, one more time, remind the audience why TIA was established in the first place. And I was happy when Zach spoke today about the role of angel funding, and something that I picked up quite sharply. He said, we are in pre-revenue, but in post-product. Very important. With TIA, we are pre-revenue and no product. We still support you at the level of ideas. So we're much early stage. And so we've invested over many years in TIA in that very high risk environment where to this date, there's very few players, if any, that continue to invest in that space. One of the part of what we've done over the years is really to build a big portfolio of highly and well de-risked investments, and some of which have become now a pipeline for many other funders. As the system evolves, it grows. I think they pick up from the portfolio that has been de-risked by TIA over the years. The question that has been asked is just in terms of TIA's own role in, enhancing commercialization in the system. And I think the fund for us has really come to catapult our ability to really strengthen our role in the commercialization space. And this is done in acknowledgement of the fact that the ecosystem has evolved, it's become very dynamic, it's producing very well de-risked technologies, but many of them require a nudge into the market through different series of funding. And so for us, I think it has been greatly, contributed significantly into that. It links specifically with, in our strategic plan 2020 as TIA, when we put that together, we acknowledged the role we played in building the ecosystem in the past, the amount of investments we've made and the portfolio we've built for the system. But we knew that we are not doing particularly well as a country in translating and making sure that a lot of the technologies make it to market. And so we put commercialization as a key point, an important pillar of our strategy. And I think the fund has been able to help us really fund that. Commercialization is a very expensive business. So we've been able, through the Innovation Fund, to make bigger quantums available to the different projects in the order of 30, 40 million rands. And we've never been able to do that in the past year. You'd only limit yourself to investments of 10, 12, 15 million. But for the first time, we're beginning to make significant investments. But let me tell you something very interesting, because we're looking at the numbers. Just from the time that we started the Innovation Fund and we got the first tranche from the department, at TIA we invested in 20 projects in numbers terms from the Innovation Fund. As of today, 10 of those are trading. 10. So we have been able to commercialize 10 startups out of a portfolio of 20 on account of the Innovation Fund. So that's very significant impact. So it begins to show you that we are funding opportunities and startups at the last mile where they're beginning to make their first sales, attracting other partners, because now we are de-risking these and coming in as call it collateral, in that space. So I think it's been quite significant for us from TIA side, just in terms of helping execute our mandate. I think those are the main points I would like to make at this point.
All right, Mr. Payne, I'd like to focus a little bit more on the role of partnerships in supporting tech entrepreneurship in South Africa. What is your sense on when it comes to how we're performing as a country on that score?
Good afternoon, or rather good morning to everyone, and thanks for the opportunity. In terms of venture capital investment in South Africa, I would actually say that the numbers are not looking good at all. If you look at the latest SAFCA report, it indicates that between the period 2011 to 2030, we have invested about 6.9 billion in the VC space. You compare that to funds under management by private equity firms, they're sitting at 206 billion. So VC funding only accounts for about 3.3% of that total. And if we as a country are to grow the economy, we know that economic growth in South Africa has been trending below 2% for the past few years. Even trend growth is low. Unemployment is also quite high. And we're well aware that small businesses are at the core of raising growth and employment creation. So for us to change that for South Africa, we actually need to allocate more funding towards venture capital, towards early stage investments. And then if you look at global markets, the mic is disturbing. Okay, I think it's fine. If you look at developed markets, for example, in the US, tech stocks accounted for over, I think, 2 trillion US dollars in market capitalization. These are companies that started at a VC stage. These are companies that are owned by families, that are owned by individuals. But because there was funding allocated to them, but because there was capital allocated to them across the spectrum as they were growing, they were able then to end up being listed, on the stock exchange. And I think that is the purpose and the role of venture capital. That is the role of putting funding towards early stage investing. The DG earlier spoke about the fact that there is funding allocated to research and development. However, those businesses disappear and no one knows what happens to them. And at the core of that is the fact that we do not have seed funding, we do not have early stage funding, and that is pre-commercialization. So, the work that we are doing as the PIC alongside the DSI is to try and plug that gap in early stage investing and ensuring that the companies that have been identified through research and project development actually scale up and become the listed players of the future.
So, apologies about the mic. If you can just hold it,
Okay,
just
sure.
secure it. Just a very quick follow-up. So you guys currently have the Innovation Fund Project Development Program partnership, which is on the go. How is that helping transform the tech space?
So the fund itself, pretty much, if you look at the objectives of the PIC's Project Development Fund and DSI's Sovereign Innovation Fund, they are pretty much aligned. The focus is to actually bridge the gap in early stage funding and then commercialize early stage ventures, increase IP of locally built businesses. That is the role that we are playing. And so far, I can say that, the DSI has allocated about 122 million to the PIC. Hopefully, we'll reach to the billion levels because there is a need in the market for that. There is definitely a need for more funding to go towards VC. We have also engaged or are on continuous engagements with our other clients, the GPF, the UIF, and CC, to make an allocation to the Project Development Fund, because that is the key for us to grow businesses within South Africa. For us to do follow-on investments and co-investments, we actually need to start at the beginning of the value chain, and that is with the SMEs. For us then to finance a company when it's medium-sized or when it's large, the PDP Fund and the Sovereign Innovation Fund provide a perfect opportunity or a pipeline to then do follow-on investments. So we start at an early stage with the hope that we will grow then with these companies as they move along the investment lending spectrum.
Sorry, okay, great. Just a very quick question from my side to the sound desk. Do we have a second roving mic? Just the one? Okay, all right. So the reason I was asking is this is a part where I'd like to take some questions from the audience, but let me first have a quick chat with Ketso. In the meantime, if you do want to ask a question, please do raise your hand so that we can see where you're at, and as soon as he is done, we'll get the mic through to you and you can pose your question. So Dr. Gordon, there, hopefully you can see me. I couldn't see you for a moment there. Okay, great. So Mr. Payne has touched briefly on the importance of having partnerships, public-private partnerships, and when it comes to the commercialization landscape in South Africa and how we're positioned from a global perspective. What are your views on it?
It's a perfect question because I wanted to say we are the SASME Fund is a perfect example of this collaboration across all of the key players in the ecosystem. So firstly, our money, we had a fund of 1.4 billion. 900 million came from 50 of South Africa's largest corporates contributing, and 500 million came via the PIC. We look forward to getting more. And with that 1.4 billion, we were able to fund 8 venture capital funds. But I only want to talk about 3 of them because in those 3, we partnered with Patrick and the team at TIA. And we understood the need for funding innovation. And so we put money into Savant, which is a hardware fund. We put money into something called the University Technology Fund, which is a first in South Africa and probably on the continent, that is specifically designed to help commercialize the IP coming out of the universities. And thirdly, we jointly funded South Africa's only biotech fund at the moment. So that was setting the scene for a proper public-private collaboration, not just in sourcing the money, but in partnering with TIA and these institutions. So when the Department of Science and Innovation were developing the ideas towards the Innovation Fund, which is now in its pilot phase, we were in a very strong position to put our hands up and say, look at our partnership with TIA and what you are planning to do. And if we continue this collaboration, we're gonna strengthen the ecosystem. And that has already started happening. So together with TIA and SAFCA, the SASME Fund, for example, is training 8 first-time venture capital fund managers. They don't have a fund, they've never run a fund. But by the end of the program, we expect that, firstly, they'll know how to do it. And secondly, we expect that we will be one of the first investors into some of those funds. So that collaboration is really strengthening, and we see our partnership with the DSI as probably one of the best examples of public-private collaboration.
What needs to be done to build a more vibrant venture capital society in South Africa?
I mean, I think the more money is the short answer, but where is it going to come from? And one of the biggest challenges South Africa has, and as Lucky was pointing out, that the VC money is tiny compared to private equity. And the reason for that is very simple. At the moment, if you went to a pension fund or a large insurance company, they understand private equity and they will make out a big check. We have yet to see a pension fund or institutional investor put money into a venture capital fund in South Africa. And I'm happy to say that by the end of this year, we would have got the first pension fund to put money into venture capital. And I think once we've unlocked that, then I see multiples of that amount of money coming out of pension fund and institutional investors. And the second is clearly, government can do more. So I'm not just saying this because Phil and Mboneni are nice guys, but if the government was able to fully understand the impact of this innovation fund, they would take the number they've given last year and multiply it by 10. And I think the combination of the pension funds, the institutional investors, and government allocating more to the innovation fund by the DSI, we could definitely see a big step up from the 3% of private equity to the 10% of private equity, which I think is the right number for us to achieve in the next year or two.
Are there any questions from the audience? Could you raise your hand if there is one? We got one there in the second row, and then could you please stand and
Thank you so much. Thank you, DG. Thank you, CEO from TIA. My name is Tulile Mtetwa. I'm from a startup innovation called Memeza, and we want to say thank you to the government of South Africa for the general support that is there for startups and for innovation. We have walked the whole path of innovation from idea pilot, everything, and the support from government is wonderful. And thank you so much, Tia. We're actually working with Tia on a commercialization project in KZN rural areas. My question today is, yes, we are aware of the support from ideation up to commercialization, but what if you have your product or your innovation tailor-made to solve government problems, government social ills that we're experiencing in rural areas, your low-income areas, let me say. What if your innovation is tailor-made to that? What does government have if you are targeting government as a buyer? Does government have an innovation fund per government? Is government ready now to take up innovation as solutions rather than the frigid, tender system that government is actually looked at? Because we've tried to knock at many government departments and they say, well, you have to go through the tender process, and the tender for that never comes through. And they also say that there is the sole tender, and there are actually a lot of government officials are afraid to go that route. So is government now open as a buyer to innovation? Thank you very much.
There was a second question over there, if you can take that.
Hi, everyone. Thanks to the speakers. My name is Magabongo Metuso. I'm the founder of a company called Good Grades. We provide tutoring to mainly high school students in mathematics and physical science. So my question is regards to the support mainly from the Department of Science and Innovation. So we managed to create a web application which serves as an MVP that would enable the learners to book a tutor, to schedule a booking session, and then the tutoring can also be hosted online. So this is, we feel this is quite innovative considering the challenges that we had with COVID, where learners couldn't attend school. So my question is, what are the what kind of support do you provide for at the stage that I'm at, which is we have a MVP developed already. We just need to have it to the right people, which is mainly the education departments. Thank you.
All right, can I take one last question?
Good day, and thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Anita Mathre from Kinetic Therapy. So I have a question for Tia specifically. We in the health industry, and we're trying to develop a software for healthcare practitioners in the idea stage. So I just wanted to get clarification, because you're saying that Tia does fund ideation phase pre-seed, but we need the money to do the MVP, so we don't have the MVP yet. We were denied, the application was denied on the basis that we didn't have the MVP. Is that still the situation, or has it been changed?
Thank you. So let me pose, I think, Dr. Mjaka, maybe you can take the first between yourself and Dr. Muhofe, the first two questions. The one was whether I think government is ready to take on innovation as a buyer.
Yeah, thanks very much. Two responses to the first question. We have something which we call Technology Acquisition Deployment Fund, TADF. It's a pilot fund with the Technology Innovation Agency that looks at entrepreneurs that have ideas that they can bring to government, or of government, to take innovations that could assist in bridging trust between government and citizens. We can have a chat with you and, of course, Patrick around that, understand your situation around that. But the second thing that we are doing, since we are now a department given innovation mandate, we are looking at the impediments to innovation, and then within government, we're trying to encourage conversation or unlock the bottlenecks that stop innovation from being taken up by government. So there's legislation at the moment that is being amended to look at how IP and ideas coming within South Africa can be bought by government, and what are the procurement challenges that we have. So we've submitted our input into exactly that, that if government is not able to demonstrate innovation and use innovation to allow then the innovators to supply the innovation because of some clauses in the procurement, it doesn't help anyone. As Khozo says, if we're given this money to drive innovation and you have innovators and those innovators can assist government, if because of one or two clauses in the procurement regulation stops that from happening, for me, it doesn't make sense. So at least we have that voice in government to really raise the level and the quality of debate around the challenges of procurement. So we don't know where it is, but again, we can keep you informed, work closely with. And I would say the same to Matuso. We would be more than happy to engage with the Department of Basic Education because we have an MOU that we've signed with them, specifically around what we call the future of education. So I can see your innovation on this web-based tool as a way of just piloting that. So maybe again offline, I would be more than happy to pick that up. But hopefully in future, these things will become like practices that don't require our intervention as a Department of Science and Innovation. But for starters, we're happy to facilitate the engagement.
All right. Then there was the third question, which I think was directed to Tia. So Patrick, if you can.
Thank you. It just rounded the MVP question, right? I take it as odd that you will be declined because you don't have a minimum viable product. So I suppose it's something that I would have to look at, quite frankly, because at TIA, we support people to get to that point as a start. So it could well be that your application may have been declined for other reasons, a little bit more than that. But sitting where I'm sitting, there's a lot of stuff happening in the organization, right? So I would obviously have to just check, but I'm happy to talk to you after this, and we can link that up, yeah.
All right, so
just one point to say, and this is the one difficult and interesting part about the TIA's mandate and our work. It's always good when we meet people that we said yes to and we take the compliment. Sometimes we have the unfortunate task of saying no, but that no sometimes helps because it basically says, go do a little bit more work to come back and find other funders because we will give you feedback in terms of how you should, review your project and so on. So please never take no from a TIA as a rejection. It's feedback we provide to say, do some more. But I'm happy we can talk after this. Yeah.
All right. So some of those conversations will happen after this. Let's move on very quickly. I'm going to try and claw back some time, but let's chat to some of the beneficiaries of the Innovation Fund. These are the guys who were said yes to it, I suppose.
Yes.
And that's why you're on stage. So perhaps next time you guys can be on the platform. So I've got there Francois van Skalkwyk. He's the Operations and Engineering Manager at Hyplat. So Francois, very quickly, Hyplat is a fuel cell technology company. Tell us a bit of what you guys are doing in this space.
First of all, thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this panel today, to really showcase how we've benefited from this innovation fund. I think it's, as you said, an excellent process of walking just through who Hyplat is and where we come from. So Hyplat is a startup company operating in the hydrogen economy and an emerging economy at that. We specifically manufacture fuel cell subcomponents, namely the membrane electrode assembly, which is the core component of the technology. Now, we were founded in 2014 based off of intellectual property developed in South Africa and funded by the DSI's Hydrogen South Africa program, specifically originating out of the HySA catalysis Center of Competence, which is co-hosted by the University of Cape Town and the Research Council, Mintech. Now, during our early phases as a startup, we were supported by TIA, enabling us to take our commercial or concept level technologies through to a pre-commercial level, systematically progressing through technology, business, and manufacturing readiness levels. More importantly, recently, the DSI further supported local fuel cell demonstrations, which allowed iPlat and its more recent equity partner, Bambili Energy, to showcase these technologies at a commercial maturity level. So with this as background, it's clear to see that the DSI, its respective entities and funding mechanisms such as the Innovation Fund has played a critical role in not only identifying emerging markets and technologies, but in terms of HiPlat's existence, supporting that critical phase, moving from concept to pre-commercial level, which is a high risk space, and at a certain point in time when angel investors and joint or other forms of investment weren't having the appetite to do so. So excellent example of public sector support for a upcoming company. Thank you.
Next to him is Jonathan Lewin. He's the founder of Hypernova Space Technologies. And I must say, I was amazed reading on what the company does and trying to get my head around a nano satellite thruster. Could you explain to us what that is?
Yeah, so interestingly, Hypernova is a space company based here in the Western Cape area in Somerset West. We started off developing this novel propulsion system that can help satellites maneuver around in space, but we've since then expanded our vision towards applying that technology along with many others that we want to develop over time to actually help companies get good overview of their operations on the ground by capturing satellite imagery. So at the moment, things like mines don't have very good view of the entire operations from pit to port, and things like satellite imagery are necessary to be able to have good idea of what's happening. At the moment, satellite imagery is still very expensive. It's still difficult to access, even globally. So these technologies we're developing is to allow us to eventually operate our own constellation of satellites that'll capture this imagery a lot cheaper, a lot higher quality than is currently done right now.
All right, let's take a look at some of the opportunities that have been opened up for you as a company, as you partnered with the Innovation Fund.
Can you be more specific on the opportunities?
Looking at, so you've partnered with the Innovation Fund. What I'm trying to get at is, what has that exposed your company to in terms of what you're able to do that you wouldn't have been able to?
So we're a deep tech company, and we're involved a lot with hardware. And there's a reason why it's called hardware. It's because it's hard. And now you want to add space to it, and you want to add a whole lot of other things, and it is very high risk. So I'm very pleased that TIA is taken on that role to help companies in the deep tech area to help bring them to market. I think at least from the space industry point of view, that's definitely the way to go. From what we've seen in the US and in Europe, government's role is pretty key in the early stages to make those investments in space companies or other deep tech like quantum, biomedical, material science, batteries. So yeah, I think we're doing the right thing here. It's the way to go.
All right, we're running out of time. So Dr. Mjaka, I want to pose the last question to you. Perhaps give us a sense of the type of impact we're seeing that these sort of partnerships will have, not only for the economy of South Africa, but positioning us as an innovation leader on the global platform.
Yeah, no, 2 points. Somebody said, I think it was Marty in the earlier session, that people always associate South Africa with former President Mandela, Desmond Tutu, may their souls rest in peace, and Charlize Theron in the movies. So we hope that we can change that perception and have people remembering that the innovations can happen in South Africa. In fact, people always remind us of the innovations around the Krippik Crawley, the innovations around, I don't know if you've seen when you go to the beach, those concrete blocks
Yes.
that are put there to stop the waves from coming into. So there are many innovations in South Africa, but as we had said earlier on, we're not known for this, number one. Secondly, they are small scale, and we've just had two companies. One is in the hydrogen fuel cell, and you've all heard about green hydrogen and new sources of growth in this area as the area that the whole world is interested in. So like the world to then see that you can have these innovations in South Africa, and High Platte, as they say, can have a range of hydrogen fuel cells, MEA, manufactured in South Africa, and then two, Hypernova in terms of these propulsion systems. The satellites are the way to go for communication and Earth observation. So one, we hope that we can demonstrate as government that we are aware that the next generation of growth would come from industry and SMMEs in particular. Two, and that innovations and ideas to innovate in South Africa are something that we support and that we believe in. Somebody said they are not leaving South Africa. And thirdly, that as government, we have a very important role to play. Gordon has said that he hopes that the institutional investors will come our way. We can promise him that we're going back to Treasury to ask for more money so we can leverage the institutional investors so that we can really have this coordinated ecosystem to drive what I think is probably the only way to address some of the challenges we have in South Africa and the rest of the
Good place to leave it. Ladies and gentlemen, no doubt a lot to get through, but the summit will continue over the next 2 days, and plenty of opportunity to continue discussing and make those critical connections. To our viewers watching us on Business Day TV and online, thank you for joining us, and most importantly to our guests and panelists, thank you for your time and your key insights. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for the panel. Thank you.